Well, here we are. You, me, and a smiling hold over a job well done. I say Volostad, and the resulting after-party raged over several bonus videos. But now the sun is rising. It's time to clean up all this orc shit. I'm ending Final Liberation with some final thoughts. To help form my thoughts, I looked up reviews of Final Liberation at its release. See, Holistic designed this video game to recreate the epic 40,000 tabletop experience. Now Epic, the tabletop game, is almost as old as I am, but the designers gave it a facelift in 1997, released the third edition as Epic 40,000, new rules, new minis. My limited understanding of the situation is that the third edition didn't do well, and that performance contributed to the seeming incompleteness of Final Liberation. No terrain editor, no other armies besides Imperial Guard, Orc, and a sprig of Space Marine. Anyway, reviews of Final Liberation from magazines and websites were mostly positive. I'll even link one from GameSpot of all places. Past Grimith would be flabbergasted. This review got published on New Year's Eve '97. Lord only knows why the review page itself has a date discrepancy. Perhaps something to do with GameSpot changing their web services at some point. And the author, well, you may have heard of their work. Greg's review extols the game's comfy conveniences and faithful adaptation. It praises the interface, the codex, the FMVs, especially the FMVs, as Final Liberation went runner-up in GameStop's Best Cinematics Award, rightly losing to The Curse of Monkey Island. Changed my mind. Back to the review. Greg also wrote, "The computer AI is quite smart at purchasing wicked combinations of units and using them against you, and it even sets up nasty ambushes once in a while despite its tendency to spread its forces too thin." What's holding Final Liberation back from being more than the great game, according to Greg? A pleasant, though inappropriately mellow music score, along with a pretty basic set of sound effects, a plain appearance, and a lack of content referenced in the codex itself. Tyranids, Chaos, Elder. Again, the reviews of the time were mostly positive, and focus on how you've got the tabletop experience brought to a video game. There's greater accessibility there, fewer expenses, quicker setup and playtime. My friends who played Final Liberation around when it came out confirmed to me as much. Imagine someone wanting to get into the minis before looking at those price tags, and that's just for one person, let alone two. I've played board game war games, and I've played creations from Games Workshop. Those can be all-day and all-night adventures. Odysseys, even. The, less than positive reviews on Final Liberation focused on repetitive play and boring design. If you're not into the tabletop experience, and you're not even into 40K, then you've got a whole glut of strategy games out there to peruse. No joke. Here's the Moby Games top listing of war games, stopping at 97. They don't even have Final Liberation filed under war game, and if you broaden that to strategy game, there's a few more options. I want to touch on two of those other options, and I'm tickled they're all right here together. Civil War Generals 2 and Close Combat. I recorded a Civil War Generals 2 series once upon a time, back in ye olden days of 2011. Half the playlist had to get moved to Dailymotion because of the era-appropriate music I started playing during the campaign. Started getting region blocked. Understandably so. The game does tactical battles with strategic carryover. If you know the American Civil War, then you'll recognize the maps and the sides involved. The objectives are better in Civil War Generals 2. Final Liberation has that problem of assigning markers which convey zero tactical value to me, yet seem important somehow. On the other hand, Final Liberation's units are far more interesting, as is building your company compositions, and you've got more freedom to choose your course in the single-player campaign, as well as win the fucking game! The Civil War Generals 2 playthrough careened to a halt over what I considered a sunk cost fallacy at the time. See, I couldn't end the game early without hitting one of a few battles and winning it hard enough. But in order to route to one of those battles, I'd have to go through a whole slog of other battles, and I beat the brakes off the Confederacy regularly, repeatedly. There's no realistic way the American Civil War would have gone so long in the face of those losses. No need for Lincoln to tie cinder blocks, McClellan's legs, and shove him into the ocean. No need for Sherman's marches and Grant's total war. That shit would have been over. But the game couldn't recognize it. So I was over it. These days, I wouldn't recommend Civil War Generals 2 to anyone unless you were an American Civil War enthusiast, but you hated every other video game on the market covering the topic. Seriously, you've got options. Options like Sid Meier's Gettysburg, the very first video game released by fledgling company Firaxis Games and truthfully designed by Sid Meier himself. Firaxis Games' second game was Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri. We've covered that before on this channel. I can safely say Final Liberation is a better overall experience than Civil War Generals 2, even the single-player campaign. If nothing else, bask in those FMVs. Now there's an argument for comparing Final Liberation to the second Close Combat game, that's Close Combat: A Bridge Too Far, as both were released in 1997. However, I don't have any experience with the second Close Combat. I do, however, have experience with the first game, and that got brushed up just this year, courtesy of my friend Effing Controller. Effing did this series on an original Power Macintosh G3, and his CD-ROM drive provides a truly authentic experience. Close Combat is a World War II themed game. The Allies have just landed on the beaches of Normandy, and the US's 29th Infantry Division is pushing for Saint-Lô to open up Paris and beyond for Allied forces. Meanwhile, the Germans are desperately trying to stall the US, I think it's the 352nd German Infantry Division over there. Right. Anyway, there's no real strategic overview in the single-player campaign. You're definitely not purchasing units. What you have is time pressure and the exigent circumstances of the war. The U.S. keep getting more reinforcements. I suppose I should say keeps getting more reinforcements. Yeah. United States. Yeah, whatever. Fuck it. And the Germans keep losing their troops. The real value of the game is in tactical combat itself, those battles in the bocages, managing not just troop health and ammo, but also morale, striking with mortars and suppressive fire, and it's all in real time. Close Combat is certainly an asymmetric game, and the AI is definitely serviceable, although more so is the Germans. Sometimes the Germans stuff their infantry all into one building for you to mortar and crush, but they get to defend from cover and elevation. Those are both real meaningful. If the AI is attacking, well, I'll say they do a better job of being orcs than the orcs in Final Liberation. Now, is Close Combat a better game than Final Liberation? I couldn't say. Hell, I'd have a rough time recommending Close Combat to anyone just due to the sheer glut of World War II games in existence. You're going to see not just a plethora, but a fucking smorgasbord even among real-time top-down, like the Close Combat series. But I digress. Actually, since we're on digression, a sideswipe here for Emperor of the Fading Suns. I admit I only played it single player, and multiplayer absolutely would have been a different and incredibly time-consuming experience. I also roleplayed it, because it's an RP system, and I remember good things about it. As for the video game, I'll just reiterate what I wrote in this comment. He says, now looking at his display of sources, here we go, professional, oh yeah, we're leaving this in, fuck it. I can't fathom touching Emperor of the Fading Suns again in my life. It can stay in 1997. I know it has a group of diehards and mods behind it, but I didn't find the game playable for its time, and I certainly don't think the years will have done it well. I'd point people to Shadow Empire if they're looking for a game which incorporates those elements. Shadow Empire? Strong game. Strong game. Look at it. I mean, how could you say it's not a strong game? Not a game I ever see myself recording, though. Remember, I'm not really a war game person. Which is a cunning segue into the last element I researched for my final thoughts. Other people playing Final Liberation. You get a taste of different gameplay and hopefully different insight. I ended up going through 2 playlists. There's the epic narrator, Garf. Garf currently does live streams of painting 40k models. This Final Liberation playlist is incomplete and, Well, not my style. You'll see if you give it a try, but it is full of effusive joy for the 41st millennium, and I simply do not possess that. Could not even begin to possess that. There's also Conrad Seek's playlist of the game, and that playthrough is complete. Conrad simultaneously knew more and less about the game than I do. There's big infantry and chimera battles all through the magic of slowest animation speed. There's one moment where the animation speed is actually ticked up, and the recorder's like, why is the game running so fast? I don't understand. But ultimately, the run is similar to what I did for my channel. Nothing much learned, but I don't regret the time invested. That's frankly how I feel about Final Liberation. This was a fine experience. I like the user interface. I really like the codex. I like the music, but not its repetitiveness. The art is serviceable. The sound design is okay when I'm not hearing Commissar. So 35% of the time? FMVs are great and stand up today, but the audio balancing on them is hell. I would know. I drag myself through audio balancing hell all the time. And you too. You too. The unit design is fun and diverse, and playing either faction is going to be its own adventure, which makes for good skirmish replayability. And while I don't know how stable the multiplayer code for this game is, the vision of bringing computers together to link up and play Final Liberation weighs in on me even if I never did it myself. I'll repeat the comfy convenience phrase here. And while I'm not that into 40k, the setting, or lore, though obviously some of it has managed to meld with my brain over all of the years, I appreciate the energy this game brought in its various forms. But the single-player campaign itself, mediocre at best. Some viewers came down pretty hard in the comments about the computer adversary's tactical choices. My problem isn't in the quality of choice. My problem is that the orcs weren't actually orcs. What the fuck is this confusion shuffle? Poke in and out of my range, low, cunning, just beyond reach, lurking in cover. You come out here and skullfuck me, damn it. That's what you do. This is a campaign of attrition. The Imperium of Man can't be everywhere. Bleed me, fucker. Keep summoning your fungus dudes with the power of war, and load them on bikes and give them dragster shield cover and just plow right into me. The orcs need to have at least one system in place for utilizing their advantages to punish the Imperial Guard player, and that simply didn't fucking occur. You know what I saw in the skirmishes besides death and destruction and a slight forgetfulness to deploy them fight-a-bombers? I saw ways in which I, as an orc player, would defeat the Imperium of Man. Those methods weren't novel for a computer adversary to use in 1997 real-time or turn-based. Again, I don't need the orcs to play great. I just need them to play like orcs, because them being orcs plays into the 41st millennium of turning this planet into an absolute bloodbath. The Imperium will have to bring in more men, while more orcs come, and the cycle perpetuates. Except, no, wait, there are no more orcs. Forget the fucking difficulty scaling. Throw the stars in the trash, along with my fucking rubber band. Because Volostad is static. All of the regions are waiting for you. There's one counterattack that'll pounce on a regiment, wherever it may be, and there's a second counterattack that wanders down from the Space Hulk. Nothing else. The orcs aren't keeping you on your toes. They're not harvesting the wealth of Volostad and spinning it into their own devices. The warg ain't bringing any more bodies. They're not finding ways to cut off your naval supply lines. Oh, what's that? You took too long to save the Astropath, so Skrull ate them? Not an issue. No one's going to crash a Space Hulk into the spaceport. They don't convert the Titans into Gargants, and they don't convert the tank factories for their own pursuits. Provided you can weather both counterattacks, you are 100% in the clear and fully capable of Rip Van Winkling the game. The second counterattack doesn't even accomplish what you might think. I tested this out in response to a comment. Retreated everyone back to the spaceport. Counterattack followed. Thought I was recapturing territory along the way, except it's actually not. Why were these design choices made? Were regular orc counterattacks and the possibility of orcs retaking regions seen as too tedious in game testing? And orc regions getting nastier to conquer over time passing also isn't a novel concept for a computer adversary to use in 1997 real-time or turn-based. But no! Big chill. Waiting for you to recruit 4 companies full of warhounds and waddle on through. You might as well just play skirmish modes then. There's either needs to be time pressure or adversary pressure in this campaign, and it has neither. I wrote in the video description for Bonus 6, after I took the spaceport, I pushed forward quickly in a 2-pronged assault. I thought those attacks were meaningful choices, risky plays to secure more regions with smaller forces before the orcs retaliated. Discovering the rubber band meant my choices didn't matter as much. What I'm here to understand is whether my choices mattered at all. And I discovered that these bonus episodes that made my choices... Excuse me. That sentence didn't make sense. I discovered, through these bonus episodes, inflection matters, that my choices didn't matter at all. Which, you know, I've played games where my choices didn't matter. Hell, I've played games that have lied to me about my choices mattering. But I find that real unacceptable for this kind of game mode. Worse still, the single-player campaigns are the skirmish maps. And there are repeats in Volostad. You mean to tell me there isn't a map with, say, a wrecked Imperial fortress on top of a damn mountain with commanding vision over the area, and you've got to go up there and assault that fucker with the orcs being able to creep over the edge and shoot down into you as you make the ascent? Imagine the rough terrain and wreckage strewn about to hinder vehicles. A real infantry game with cannon speedsters appearing long enough to propel themselves back into hiding with their shots. No, you think that elevation would have been too advanced for 1997? Well, how about this? The orcs have rooted themselves in an underground zone, maybe at work trying to fetch the Titans, maybe in some research area, maybe an entire transportation zone dug out by Volostad's inhabitants, so you gotta go down there. Close quarters nightmare fuel against the orcs with your Imperial Guardsmen. Leave those tanks outside, bud! You're gonna wish you had more than Ultramarine Scouts against the Greenskins down there. What's that? You think underground would have been too advanced for 1997? Alright. What if the orcs, as time progresses on Volostad, repurpose the human technology for their own inscrutable purposes? You're trying to retake Volostad's capital? Well, the mech boys have prepared some orbital defense cannons. They've got void shields. They've got range. They will fuck you up. Better get moving. Except, of course, we've got to adhere to our epic unit designs. We can't have any further experimentation in these missions, and that's such a hindrance for the campaign. I would expect to see genuinely unfair positions and weaponry or situations I'd never encounter in a skirmish that I need to find a way to resolve. Very much not a novel concept for 1997, but nope. See, that would be high cunning. We can't have that, only low cunning, you understand? There are rules. So, yeah. I thought the campaign was lackluster without doing the bonus videos. After Bonus 6... which leads to a dangling thread I simply don't have an answer for. I played the GOG release of Final Liberation. The version 1.01 patch notes... in my game installation, cover the Land Raider and a slew of bug fixes along with dating the patch notes to the Ides of December in 97. There's no documentation in folder for what changes, unofficial fixes, and patches may have been brought in for the GOG release. Those can happen, without the player being told. I would know. My Might and Magic 7 for Blood and Honor series demonstrated this. Also, as an aside, this is one of the few series I did bonus videos for, concluding in a final thoughts, which means Final Liberation, despite me not knowing it until the series, joined some rare company here. Let's get on with it. After the end of the Might and Magic 7 playthrough, cast the haste spell worked, and it derailed my brain. Dug out my original CDs, installed the game, gave it the latest official patch, and recorded the haste spell not working. That's why I chugged so many damn haste potions in that run. They last longer anyway, but still, that's not a bad fix, but it does make the game different. Throughout this series, I've received comments which have contradicted my documented experience. I can't definitively say your memories are wrong. I don't fucking know. Maybe your orcs actually attack you more than twice. Maybe they retake regions. Maybe they really behave like orcs. But that's just not what I played here, and what I captured for you all to see, or not see, as the case may be. I welcome input from your own experiences with the game now, as full as you'd like to make it, since we're here at the end, and you can't change how I played. I'd like to hear your after-action reports, and if you can record different behavior from the game itself, I think that's cool to see too. That's something else I wanted to see from those different YouTube playthroughs. Some last bits and bobs before I go. One from Mech4 about hidden units, which I did get to appear in both skirmish and campaign. Look at that. Oh, aren't you wowed by that weaponry? Woof. That's gonna blow them away. Still that, yeah. You know, incomplete, of course, just a fragments of code. Anyway, yeah, I figured what the fuck. I'd look through the garbled text of unit.dat as well as the pedia folder. Only found this bit about Imperador Titans. No unit data. There you go, mech. Edingo, 1106, brought up the idea of selling damaged units for full sell price. Works perfectly. If you'd rather not repair a squadron, then don't feel bad pitching it for full sell price. Just don't purchase the same squadron as a replacement. You will be setting your resources on fire. Alright. I think that does it for me. I'm glad I did this series, and I'm glad this series got done. I appreciate the company along the way. I will look back fondly on this game's FMVs. I will grit my teeth at hearing Commissar repeatedly. I will remember the illusion of what this campaign could have been after I successfully completed the tutorial. That's the power of smoke and mirrors. Take care, everyone. And if you don't hail the Emperor in the comments below, then choose your next words with exceptional care. Hold on. I've got him. Here he is. Yeah! You better choose those next words with exceptional care. If you don't hail the Emperor. All hail the Emperor. It's for your own good.